We're now going to look at entering a supplier invoice, or bill as it's referred to in Enterprise. This can be found in the supplier module under Bill Purchase Invoice and option 305, which is New Bill/Purchase Invoice. When we select that option, it gives us two tabs. We can see the first tab, which is our GRNs that are awaiting bills, and we have an active suppliers tab. The active suppliers tab will just be used for expense bills like mobile phones, things like that. What we're going to look at first of all is the first tab, which is the GRNs awaiting bills. What we need to do is just tick the GRN that we're booking in. We can search for the purchase order number if we've left that in our reference, which makes it easier for searching, or we can search on the GRN number. In here, it also groups it by the supplier name, and then we'll list the GRNs underneath it. What I'm going to do, I'm going to tick GRN number 2, and then I'm going to double click, or you can either click the OK option at the bottom right. I prefer to double click, so I'm just going to select that. What we can see is we've got the invoice date, which is our first field. This is really important that you change this invoice date to be the relevant tax point date on the supplier's invoice. We cannot change this in Enterprise once you have saved it. If we tab out of that field and go to the invoice number, so this is the supplier's invoice number. The invoice number can be alphanumeric. What we've then got, because we're entering this against a GRN that has already been booked in, what we can see is the total at the top has been calculated from the item lines that have been booked in on the particular GRN. This screen is quite nice. If everything is correct on the GRN, then all you have to enter at this point is the invoice date and the invoice number. Obviously check that your payment term is correct. That will then show an expected due date based on the terms that that's linked to. Once we're happy with that, we can then just save and close. As we save it, we can see it gives it a bill number, and that just takes the next number in sequence. I'm going to book in GRN number 3, and I'm going to tab down to the total. Now what we can see in here is we received one at a cost price of 200. What I'm going to do in this example is I'm just going to change that confirmed cost price. As I change it and tab out of the field, we can see the expected price. If I just maximise that window, we can see a bit better. So we can see the expected cost and the confirmed cost. We would normally save and close, but what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to click save. What we can see here, and this would pop up if we did save and close as well, is it's telling us that the header doesn't agree to the item lines. So basically it's saying here we've got £205, which we can see down the bottom, and we've got a VAT amount of 41, giving us a total of 246. If we look at the top of the screen, it's saying we've got a net of 200, a VAT of 40, and a gross of 240. Now, rather than keying those figures in again, because we're happy with what is on the lines, what we can do, if we tick balance header from item lines, we can see it will recalculate those figures based on what we've got on the item lines. And that should obviously match up with the supplier invoice. I'm just going to click save on this particular one. What we can then see is we've now got the view journal button. If I just click this and just maximise the window, what we can see, the original GRN, we've got line 1 and line 2. So we can see it's reversed out the £200 on the inventory control account and reversed out the £200 from the accrued creditors account. What we can then see on the actual journal that has been linked to the bill, we can see the VAT is £41. We've now got the cost price going to our inventory control account, which has said 20 at £10.25. Which is the confirmed cost price. We can see in that line above we've got the unconfirmed cost price, and then in here we can see our total of £246 going to the creditors control account. Now I'm going to book in GRN number 4. So again, what we can do is change the invoice date, enter the supplier's invoice number. We've then got the net total, got the VAT and the gross. What I'm going to do on this particular one is I'm going to say I'm not being invoiced for any of those. Now from an enterprise point of view, we can either zero this or it is 9. We can't say on this particular invoice we've got 5 of the 9 and we've got the 14. If you do have that scenario where they're only partially invoicing you, you'll need to go and amend the GRN, which can be seen in the Find Goods Received note video. Split the GRN out and then do them as two separate GRNs and book them back in. Because I've changed this line here, my totals at the bottom are different. I'm going to tick again to balance the header from the item lines, and I'm going to save and close. If you have got a GRN that is outstanding, please don't go and enter it as an expense invoice because you will then be doubling up on your figures. You will end up with the accrual in there, and then you'll end up with the cost from the supplier expense bill. What we're going to look at now is we're going to look at entering an invoice against an active supplier. In the mobile phone supplier, we're going to enter an invoice. So if we double click on the supplier, we can see the bill date, so I can backdate this. I can put this to the 1st of January. If I then tab to the invoice number and put in the supplier's invoice number, we've then got the goods amount. So if I just type in £100 and tab, we can see based on the supplier's account and then being the standard 20%, it's automatically put £20 on there. We can see here that the default nominal on this particular supplier is set to 5,000. If you notice this at this point, what you can do is click the supplier details button. If we click the setup tab and we go to the expense, service and non-stock line, then we can type in the default nominal code. That will now save that. If I save and close, that will now save that for that particular supplier. So when I do a new invoice again for the same supplier, it will default to the telephone nominal code. It's an extra step that you don't have to keep doing every time you enter an invoice for that supplier if you know it always goes to the same code. So now I know it's 7504, I can just type that in there. We can see the account description of the nominal code, and then in here we can type in any extra information. What we can then do, if we save that, see view journal, and we can see there VAT, the telephone and the creditors control account. If I just close that, and I'm just going to refresh that list a second. If we now go back into the mobile phone supplier, we can see down here now it's defaulted to the 7504. What we can do is put in a different invoice number. I'm going to put in £200. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to split this out. So I'm going to say £100 was for one person and £100 was for another person. You can actually split this as many times as you like. You can have as much nominal analysis in here as required. Going to type in the notes there, Tony. And then if we go down to the next line, again I want 7504 because it's for the same. I'm going to put in £100. So we can see the total here now matches up what we've got there. If it didn't, then we would get the same message that the header doesn't match the totals. If we save and close, we'll now just enter another invoice against a stationery supplier. We can put the bill date in. Now, when you're putting the bill date in Enterprise, if we type 15, do a slash, then it'll take you on to the month, slash, and then it'll take you on to the year. Now we can see here, if I try to put that back to 2018, you can actually see in the preferences, it's got it set to say we can't put a bill date back any further than that. If you want to split it out to analyse it more, then you can. Otherwise, we can leave it like that and save and close. I'm just going to enter another new bill. I'm going to post this to general expenses. I don't know what the code is for general expenses. So if I just type in the word general and tab, you can see it will then give me my list of anything that's got general in the description, and I can then select the code that I want. What I'm going to do is I've actually got a query with this invoice, so I'm going to put it on hold. What we can see at the point of putting the supplier bill on, there is a little tick box here that says it's on hold. So in here we can just put the reason. On these screens here, the F4 key on your keyboard opens and closes them. The same with the notes, F4 on the keyboard opens and closes. What we can also do, if we save that supplier bill, as we save it, we'll notice we get a new Documents tab. What we can do here, if we've had the invoice from the supplier by email, and that's as a PDF, then what we can do is paste this in here. It could be any type of document, PDF, Excel, Word, however it comes to you, you can just paste that in. I just copy a file that I have, and I just right click in there with my mouse, I get the option to paste file, and we can see that's now pasted in. You only see this Documents tab once you've saved the bill. So if you've done save and close, then you'll have to go and find the bill, open it up, and then attach it on. If we need to enter a supplier invoice against a purchase order with a GRN and there is carriage on there, and that wasn't originally on our purchase order when we raised it because we didn't know how much it was going to be, what we can do, if we tick the line and double click the particular GRN that we're booking in, we can type in the invoice number. What we can see is these are all our items. However, there's no carriage in here. There's no actual expenses in this total box at the bottom. So what we can do here, if we click on the expenses tab, and if we type in carriage and tab, because it's to do with purchases, we can see here it's going to be 5905. That is the carriage freight and duty one. That's the standard one. If you put the carriage on the purchase order, that is the code that it would use. If we just say there was £20 carriage, we can see it's calculated the VAT on there. If we now try to save that, it will pop up with our message about the header and the details, which is fine. We can tick that and that will then recalculate those lines. We can then save and close, or we can save it and attach the supplier bill by pasting it into the Documents tab if you want to. Just going back to the Active Suppliers tab, what we can also do, as we put a supplier bill on, we can obviously change the nominal code and we can add notes and we can change the amount here. But what we can do is we can say £50 of the goods was VATable. If we then pick the same code again, we could say £50 was not VATable. You don't change the VAT amount. You must click on the drop down and select the correct VAT code so it goes to the correct place on the VAT return. If we do that, we can see this actual invoice now should be £110. What we can do up here again is balance header from item lines and we can see the different values there. We can either save where we get the Documents tab and paste our document in, or we can do save and close. Once we've finished with that, we can just close it with the cross.